Hello everyone, this is Tribecast episode 5 and my name is Marina. Today I have got for you 3 interesting interviews from 3 very different people. First you'll hear a representative of Estonian startup ecosystem Asko Seebo, who agreed to talk to me after his speech during startup breakfast organized by Tribe Tampere. Then Tomi Terentiev will share his thoughts on the Finnish startup life and what can Nordic Startup School teach you. And last but not the least, Alexandra Santos will tell us what is Tribex and what to expect from Startup World Cup. Let's get started. And today we're having Asko Seebo, our special guest from Estonia.
Hi there.
And first things first, Asko, can I ask you to tell a few things about yourself? What are you up to currently?
Yeah, I'm one of the co-founders and managers in an Estonian software company called Moongascade, and most of my time recently have been going into messing and hacking with data science and cloud infrastructures, and helping people to do the things in a way that won't waste too much of their time.
I know that you're quite close to Estonian startup ecosystems. Can you please comment on what's going on there now?
Yeah, the startup scenery in Estonia, as probably some of you might have already heard or known, is booming like hell. There are lots of scale-ups growing like a weed. The hiring pool is getting really tight. You know, the Estonian country is really small. We have just 1.3 million people as a population, and when you narrow it down into some tech field, then it's like a small village, and all those scale-ups have to get along there somehow friendly. But it's actually quite cool there, and very interesting. People really learn how to do business internationally, and they are able to raise magnitudes of funds and really become successful. There are a couple of active unicorns, lots of startups that have been raised funds like tens of millions. Their user bases are growing. They are becoming more and more popular among their international customers, and so on and so on.
Recently, a few colleagues from Tribe Tampere have been present during Tartu Startup Day. Could you tell us a few things about this event as well?
Tartu Startup Day is one of the 2 biggest Estonian startup events. One is the Latitude 59, which is held yearly basis in Tallinn. Next one is going to be the last week of May. And Tartu Startup Day is another yearly event held in Tartu. Last week was the last one. It was held 3rd time. It has been very successful in the sense that people really participate there en masse. The first event was held 3 years ago. Initially the organizers just dreamed that if they managed to get like 1,000 people together they would be lucky, but it turned out that the first event was like 3,000 people or so. They really did put the venue on test. The next years, like last year and this year, haven't been less successful in that sense. So I have heard from people from different ranks, like from startups, from investors, from employers, to say only positive emotions about the Tartu Startup Day.
Right, and from Tartu to the universal size, will you be present during the Startup World Cup in Finland? And what do you expect from this event?
Yes, I already have marked it in my calendar. I'm going to be here on 6th of March, was it? Yeah, and some pre-teaser. I already heard that somebody said I'm going to speak at the pre-event called Tribecast, so please come and visit. For me, it is more like exploring the community here. I haven't been in Tampere like professionally before. I remember I once was here when I was teenager, but there was a delegation from Tampere visiting Tartu like fall last year, and somehow I got an idea from there that I should pay a visit back and then see what the people are doing here and what's going on here, and so here I am, and I'm going to check out the March event as well. So,
as an outsider, what are your feelings about Finland and Tampere in precise startup ecosystem? Do you feel that we differ from Estonian?
I don't have like too much much personal experience in the Finnish tech ecosystem into great detail, so I can't compare too easily those two ecosystems, but there are a couple of interesting things that I recognize. Is that one thing is that we are probably, it seems to me that we are probably struggling the similar struggles in the sense that both Finns and Estonians, on average, they are all very introverted people. and then for most of the startups, either in Finland or in Estonia, talking to a customer and validating the ideas and being kind of really acting extrovert in that sense is really something that takes some dedicated effort from the people. I'm from Tartu, which is kind of a similar town in Estonia like Tampere is in Finland, because I already see here that people from the Tampere ecosystem tend to compare them with what is going on in the Helsinki ecosystem. At the same time, we have the similar thing in Tartu in Estonia, that we are having our own community there. We are having our own kind of bunch of startups spawned from Tartu, and we are also comparing our situations and surroundings with what is going on in Tallinn. So in that sense, me as somebody from Tartu feels quite at home in Tampere at the moment. Regarding differences, I can't really say in the sense that, well, Finland has obviously a bit longer history as a free country in terms of entrepreneurial economies and stuff like that. The Finns usually, because of that, Finnish culture has lots of more kind of entrepreneurial experiences and so on. In Estonia, on the other hand, we had this kind of a Soviet background thing in the history where somewhere 25 years ago we had to build everything from the ground up. There were some curses in it, but also there were some opportunities in it. On the curse side, you have the situation where you can't rely on too much things. You just have to figure everything out on your own. On the opportunity side, that also is a positive thing, that you don't have any kind of legacy copper wires in the ground, so you don't have to worry too much about legacy related inertia. You are having a blank paper where you can, whatever you can do it properly from the ground up. You just need to figure out what that properly means. It is kind of this and that might be a bit different from the Finnish background, and obviously that again, that population thing as well. While Estonia is a smaller country than Finland, again there are some challenges and some opportunities in it. On the challenge side, it means that Estonia as a market for any product is usually non-existent. Whenever an Estonian startup starts off, it has to think about the international market from the day one. It doesn't make sense to think about the Estonian market for test bed or something in most of the cases. And so that's kind of on the challenge side, but on the opportunity side, because of this smallness of the country and the population, again, we have a very little inertia in doing things. We can really quickly test and validate, try different attitudes towards doing things. So it's kind of easier to probably adjust the cultural thinking and working methods than maybe somewhere with a bit larger community and inertia in it.
Right. What would you mark out as the key for success for the Estonian startup community? What was this accelerator or growing point? I don't know.
I guess there were a couple of things that has had to be there in order for this kind of startup scenery to pick up and boom really rapidly. As I was telling in my speech today, that the Estonian startup scenery basically started from the place where people didn't know even the word startup to the place it is right now in just kind of 15 years or even less than 15 years. And there has had to be a couple of things in place in order for that to be possible to happen. One of the things I believe was the main contributor or main trigger was that we luckily got our first startup experience right as a unicorn experience. We had this Skype, and then actually in parallel with Skype there was another company called Playtech, which people don't know much about, but that was actually also a kind of unicorn level startup. It was more like a P2P in gambling industry, so people don't know too much about it from outside of Estonia, but Estonians know. So these two were extremely successful startups. We didn't have any startups at all, and then suddenly we have two of them, two unicorns in our backyard, and Skype being the most glamorous, not only in the scale of Estonia but also in the global scale. It was really glamorous startup. This was the first, this was basically the trigger. It made people, especially the young people, young talented people to think that, hey, this has been possible here. Why shouldn't I try it too? Like, people wanted to get more of it, and it kind of created this attitude or motivation to start trying. But that alone wasn't enough. There was we didn't have like too much startup related infrastructure in place. We didn't have like too much established investor ecosystems or event series or other kind of like infrastructural or cultural things that usually you can see in different startup centers. And these had to be built up as well. Like right after the Skype, there were a couple of things were happening quite fast. Like there were special dedicated hackathon event series created in order to enable people to try out the kind of like lean and mean startup quick prototyping and hacking mentality, and also kind of like create the awareness among the people that this is how things usually get started in the startup scenery. So basically, two things I would say. One was those unicorns that triggered the motivation, and the other was kind of like a community build-up. But assuming that the motivation is there, this community build-up happens fast as well, because when people are really motivated, they will figure out how to help each other, how to build things up, and so and take things to the next levels.
That was a very extensive and very explanatory answer. Thank you very much. In your opinion, for startups nowadays in, let's say, Baltic region, so Nordics and Estonia and Latvia, what are the main problems they face nowadays, and what is the main key to success?
I guess the most of the opportunities and then challenges are somewhat related to the size of the countries, either in Estonia or Latvia or Lithuania. They are pretty much similar in the sense it is easy to start new ideas over there. In Tartu, it's really, you can really quickly find a team of 2 or 3 like-minded people to start playing with something. You can easily get some kind of like hot desk to work at somewhere together and get some quick validation of your ideas from here and there, and lots of help. But the main trouble for the startups there is when they get to the point where they have to scale, because and that comes from the size. The small size help you to start quickly when you are in the idea stage, because people know each other like very well, and then you figure out help quickly and so on. But at the same time, that size is also an obstacle when you have to scale. When you start growing your team, like you get to the point where you have already 40, 50, 60 people, then you suddenly start feeling that the hiring pool just doesn't scale anymore. All these scale ups and then quickly growing startups, they're all struggling at the same hiring pool in those small countries. And this is one of the reasons why most of the scale-ups are at some point starting to quickly build up their engineering offices on some other locations as well, like I don't know, Poland or Belarus or Ukraine and places like
or
that.
Or Finland. I don't know if we do that.
I haven't heard about.
I know people do quite a lot the other way, Finland to Estonia.
The people are interacting quite a lot between Finland and Estonia, but I haven't heard an Estonian startup to start building up an engineering office in Finland. So
okay, now we're giving them an idea.
Yeah, that might be. There has been an acquisition in the history where one Estonian software company, which wasn't a startup anymore at that time, acquired one Finnish company, which is Nortal. Maybe you have heard about that.
I think we're good for now, unless you want to finish your ideas.
Well,
right.
One thing maybe that I also finished up my speech today on the stage is that time is our most precious resource. Whenever you, I don't know, lose or waste your money or some other resources, you can recover from that. But when you spend time, you can never get your time back what you have spent. And whatever you do, when you consider that your next startup or next kind of like employment engagement or whatsoever, you have to think that it is going to consume a significant amount of the time that you have left before you retire. So you have to think carefully what you spend it on, and when you engage, then you have to think how to spend the time in the way that least amount of it gets wasted on unnecessary things. And my kind of like a personal mission is also to help people to avoid wasting their time. And my ways of doing this, because of my software engineering engineering background is obviously through technology. I am currently working on a lot on kind of like data science and cloud-based data engineering technologies, and helping people to figure out ways how to do their project in a fast, lean and mean fashion, how to value